Kevin Marsh is on, so.
Good morning, councillors, staff, members of the public. Welcome to this our council meeting C22/5. To open the meeting, I'll call on Chris Napier for a Katakana.
Tūtawa mai runga, tūtawa mai raro, tūtawa mai roto, tūtawa mai waho, kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, haumi e hui e tāki. A ka whakaaro hoki ahau kia rātou kua ngaro atu i te tirohanga kanohi, i tērā o ngā wiki kua hoki tō tātou rangatira pēri kohu, ki te kōpū o te whenua. He tika rā me hoki ngā mahara ki aia, i runga i ona mahi kei Wainganui i ngā kaunihira. A me te mea hoki i runga i aua mahi, ka puta mai ngā hua hāpai o ngā hapu, a hāpai o ngā iwi, hāpai hoki i te hāpori whānui. Nō reira ke taku rangatira, a waiho mā mātou ngā waiho tanga au, te kawea i o mahi. Nō reira, huri noa ki a tātou e noho ora nei, a tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora, Chris, in that Karakia Chris reference Petition who passed last week, and I would appreciate a few minutes silence in recognition of his contribution to our community. Right, I thank you for that. Reminder for those who are on Zoom to mute when you're not speaking, and this meeting has been live streamed. And just a reminder to anybody who's presenting today, it is on record, so just be careful what you say. We give no indemnity for whatever you're likely to say. First of all, we have two late items. Can I have a move in a second to accept those late items? Don Thwaites and Henry, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no, carried. We have no public excluded items, so we'll move straight into the public forum. We normally work in the order that people came in, but we have had a request from Jenny Hobbs that she wants to go first. So Jenny Hobbs, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Mayor Gary, councillors and staff. Today, I want to encourage you to vote in favour of Councillor Murray Benja's motion for this council to withdraw its membership from LGNZ. LGNZ are an expensive layer of bureaucracy that cannot be trusted, and I and many other New Zealanders believe our councils can save money and do a much better job of advocating for themselves and their communities to central government. As I said in my email to you all yesterday, LGNZ is an incorporated society and as such has a set of rules under which to operate, which include advocating for the views and decisions of their member councils and the communities they represent to central government. LGNZ have proven beyond doubt that as an advocacy group, a very expensive advocacy group for the ratepayers of New Zealand, we the people, they cannot be trusted and in fact appear to be acting against us as a team with central government when it comes to the government's Three Waters programme. With these actions, they have acted in breach of their own rules. LGNZ accepted a large sum of money from the Department of Internal Affairs to work for central government to persuade and recruit councils to support the government's Three Waters programme. Stephen Franks and Bridget Morton from the public law firm Franks Ogilvie wrote a legal opinion piece on the Water Services Entities Bill, which is the Three Waters legislation the government intend to pass into law without hearing from the people. In that opinion piece, they said, claims that councils will still have ownership of the water assets are false, misleading, and deceptive. The claims are calculated to deceive parliamentarians, and when it becomes law, to deceive the people of New Zealand. DIA officials and LGNZ appear to have colluded in the misleading and deceptive conduct, they said. And Queen's Counsel Gary Judd stated in his review of the Franks Ogilvie legal opinion that when all lying statements in the Water Services Entity Bill are put together, the government's effrontery is breathtaking. So I ask you all, how has LGNZ advocated for the ratepayers of Western Bay of Plenty District Council? How have we benefited from the membership paid to LGNZ from our rates? Before any community engagement was conducted, LGNZ signed a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Internal Affairs, whom they colluded with against us, committing us to the Three Waters program and the bill, which is full of lies and intended to deceive us all. LGNZ revenue from New Zealand councils is in the millions, around 6 million, I believe, and for what? So today, councillors, be bold. Be a strong influencer in the defunding of LGNZ, and send a message to staff in the incoming council that you do not agree with LGNZ signing us up to the Three Waters program. Once gone from local ownership, we will never get these assets back and will lose control for future generations of our water. So I'm here today to ask you to stand on the right side of history and vote for Councillor Murray Benja's motion for Western Bay of Plenty District Council to withdraw their membership from LGNZ. And I just want to say thank you all very much for your services to the community for the last 3 years, and to wish you all good luck, whether it's in a new venture or whether it's in your candidacy in the election. Thank you.
Yeah, any questions? Are there any questions of Jenny? There would appear not. The next speaker is Tracy Coxhead.
Good morning, everybody. A lot of what I wanted to say has already been said, and I too am here to speak to the motion proposed by Councillor Margaret Murray-Benj. I'm just going to read what I had written anyway. It can only reaffirm what's already been said by Jenny. So I have read the memorandum of understanding, call it heads of agreement, whatever you like, that LGNZ signed with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, committing their support to central government for the Three Waters reforms. Having read the whole document, I find it truly concerning and alarming. In the words of LGNZ, they act as an advocate or a conduit between local government and central government. But in reality, they are essentially acting as messengers for the government, working towards a predetermined outcome. Three Waters would have to be the most significant and divisive issue ever faced by councils. Many New Zealanders, and I would suggest a vast majority, are opposed to these reforms. This is a time when open debate is essential and must be encouraged. Last month, LGNZ banned the representatives of the Taxpayers Union from attending their conference in Palmerston North. These people are not thugs. They are respected and professional individuals. They represent the concerns of many hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders. Blocking dissenting voices is not only undemocratic, it triggers other reactions, as we've already seen. In any democracy, robust debate is essential, particularly on an issue as important as this one. Anyone who attended the Taxpayers Union meeting at the Mount would also have a very clear understanding of how concerned many New Zealanders are about these reforms. There were approximately 600 people attending in Tauranga. I was there, and as I'm sure many of you were as well. The Taxpayers Union Roadshow visited 39 locations throughout the country, reaching approximately 10,000 plus people. People obviously want their voices to be heard. They also held a petition, Stop Three Waters, And at its closing, it was a couple of weeks ago, they had gained over 103,000 signatures. And I'll talk about Stephen Frank's opinion as well. Further, we now have the opinion of Stephen Franks of Franks Ogilvy regarding the meaning of the use of words ownership and shares used in the Three Waters material. They have deemed the use of these words to be misleading and deceptive. For example, the everyday investor, something that I'm very familiar with in my line of work, the everyday investor understands that shares have certain standard rights attached to them, which is clearly not the case here. It is further suggested in their opinion that the use of these terms by other organisations in the context of Three Waters could have legal ramifications under the Fair Trading Act and the Financial Markets Conduct Act. In conclusion, it is time for this council to resign from LGNZ, just as the Timaru Council already has. This organisation clearly no longer represents the views and or the concerns of your ratepayers. In closing, I will share this statement from LGNZ's conference brochure. We're on a mission to create the most active and inclusive local democracy in the world. Come join us. Somewhat ironic, I thought. Thank you.
We had another one who has not arrived. Margaret Colmore is the next speaker, please.
Good morning, councillors and Mayor. I do have copies of my speech that I can give to you if you want it for later. I'm here as well to support Margaret Murray's bench push for the withdrawal of council's membership to LGNZ. A lot of what I am going to say has also been said already by two well-spoken ladies. LGNZ describes itself as a local democracy's vision and voice. It also claims to represent the interests of the district councils in New Zealand. However, accepting a government payout of $2 million for not obstructing government's push for Three Waters destroys its credibility. I also question, as do many others, this council's respect for the people, when it is clear that handing over our city's water infrastructure is most definitely not in our best interests. I listened to the council webinar when councillors were deliberating over the response to the government's proposal, and distinctly heard Mayor Webber propose to play a wait-and-see approach in case there was an offer too good to turn down. This should have been an outright no from the start. The assertions that councils will share ownership are to hoodwink the population into acceptance, but these are blatant lies. The Taxpayers Union asked the law firm Franks Ogilvy to assess the Three Waters bill, specifically to identify where ownership and shareholding are covered in the bill. The lawyer's report states, again, false, misleading, and deceitful language was used to promote Three Waters to councils and the public. Defining ownership under the bill in section 166, it is clear there is absolutely no element of control, no equity, no ability to sell, no control of maintenance, no dividends, and no ownership whatsoever. Defining shareholding, there is absolutely nothing in the bill that would give any rights for shareholding by the community or councils. It could not be clearer that there are absolutely no rights of ownership or shareholding given to communities. Be aware, councillors, of possible liability charges under the Commerce Act and concerns by the Public Service Commissioner about what has been complicit by the public servants, which you are, in repeating these claims. Councils are being lied to, and LGNZ is complicit in this stance. LGNZ acts as conduit between the government and council to implement the government's agenda. LGNZ is a membership organisation which we as taxpayers pay annually $6 million, with 80% of its income going into training workshops and seminars to train councillors and staff into implementing the 17 goals of sustainable development, also known as Agenda 21 or Agenda 2030 now. According to the United Nations' own website, this is a comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally, nationally, and locally by organizations of the United Nations system, governments and major groups in every area in which human impacts the environment. Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development, uses the pretext of climate change to implement a United Nations-driven global governance to control all resources, all land, all food, and all people at a local level. This agenda is run by the United Nations via an NGO called International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, commonly known as ICLEI. It is implemented locally by councils, major cities worldwide. Our future mayors need to be aware of ICLEI and not to be enticed into implementing its goals. An excerpt from Agenda 21-2030 that will shed more light on the reason for Three Waters. This comes from the plan. The endorsers of this plan believe that water should only be used in the satisfaction of basic needs. And beyond these requirements, water users should be charged appropriately. And that's from Chapter 18, Section 8, a goal that is detailed in Chapter 18, Section 58, that would ensure that all urban residents have access to at least 40 litres per person per day of safe water. That's enough for one person's shower. This inventorying of water resources will effectively plan and manage water supply at every level, including national, provincial, district, and community. That's from Chapter 18, Section 53. I suggest you read it. The proposed 4 regional entities are also part of this agenda to become regional governments, as stated in the agenda, whose power will supersede that of your elected governments. We will then have no control, as these positions are selected and not elected. We are already being primed for this by the government-funded media, who say there are not enough candidates standing for election. LGNZ's website states the current local government framework is not fit for today or tomorrow. To address these challenges and the changes to local government's functions and roles taking place through the Three Waters and resource management reforms, we need to reimagine the role councils play in the well-being of our communities. Looking at Tauranga City Council as the future of governance, commissioners forced upon us, pushing forward with the future proofing of Cameron Road as a prime example.
So, sorry,
reducing 2 lanes to 1, there'll be 30 seconds, widening footpaths, reducing traffic lanes, reducing roundabouts, traffic lights, all to accommodate pedestrians and cyclists, creating traffic congestion as a means to force people out of cars, all because of climate change. I urge councillors to stand up against this global control and join the Timaru Council in withdrawing membership from LGNZ. I advocate that the council withdraw from LGNZ. And we are in an information warfare. Suppression and censorship is rife. And if you would like a comprehensive overview of what Agenda 2030 is really all about, I have 3 links on this form.
So, Margaret, if you leave them with the secretary, she'll hand them around. If you leave them with the secretary, Padilla will hand them around. Thanks. That is the end of the request we had to attend our public forum. Before we move into the meeting proper, the last speaker mentioned information warfare, and I think it's appropriate that I just give you a bit of background. In 2016, the then government legislated the National Policy on Freshwater Management, which incorporates Te Mana Otuwai legislation. That became the law. That was pretty much unanimously acclaimed as very good legislation. Then on the 25th of October 2017, a significant number, I think there was 2 who abstained, significant number of councils signed the local government leaders water declaration, and it reads, as the leaders of their communities, the mayors and chairs of New Zealand declare their continuing and absolute commitment to valuing and managing water as a precious resource. We want New Zealand to be world leaders in sustainable water management, and we'll work with our communities and partners towards that goal. Protecting our freshwater lakes, rivers, streams, and groundwater is important because it ensures there is enough. Achieving this will require a collaborative effort from many parties, councils, communities, central government, Maori iwi, business and primary sector. As a result, in 2017 and 18, local government will scope the cost of maintaining and or improving water quality and its continued supply through its Water 2050 project. That was a resolution by all of the councils, bar two, I think it was, including Timaru City Council, to get local government New Zealand to coordinate the response to the water issues. So to say local government are doing this blindly is a little bit erroneous. The councils used this declaration to work in the best interest of councils to meet the freshwater reforms that were legislated in 2016. So I think that was a bit of background that might help some people understand the reality. Thank you. We now move into the formal agenda.
Take a move that we bring the petition up, the notice of motion up now while the people are here.
Do we have a seconder for that move? Councillor Henry. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. We now move to the notice of motion, which was towards the back of the agenda, up, down, and the floor is yours to move the notice of motion.
Without consulting local councils, the Local Government Association did a deal with government that in exchange.
Sorry, are you moving the notice of motion or are you
Yes, I am, and
speaking
I'm speaking to it.
Pardon? That's absolutely yes.
Right, I shall move it. That the Western Bay of Plenty District Council resigns from New Zealand Local Government Association because the association no longer represents us or speaks for the well-being of our ratepayers or this council. I so move.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Sol.
I then speak to it, sir.
Thank you.
Without consulting local councils, the Local Government Association did a deal with the government that in exchange for a paltry 2 million handout, the association would say nothing critical about the government's Three Waters proposal. Before any major proposal, and especially one of this magnitude, Local Government New Zealand should have consulted with all council members. They failed to do so. Even worse, they have broken their own rules. Rule 16 states, the income and property of LGNZ must be applied towards the promotion of its objects, which include B1A, to promote the national interests of local government through the promotion of LGNZ's vision as approved by the National Council from time to time, and B1B, to advocate on matters affecting the national interests of local government and its communities it represents. Therefore, the rules of the association have been fundamentally breached. This is a huge disappointment for local councils and the ratepayers of this country. The president of the association had the audacity to talk about localism when he clearly supports the biggest asset grab local government has experienced for many decades, perhaps ever. We councillors have never received so many emails from our local ratepayers as we have on the Three Waters proposal, and those emails have been overwhelmingly opposed to the government's proposal. But here in the Western Bay, we have left it to other councils to do the hard work of opposing the government scheme. On a divided vote, we decided not to join the many other councillors which had formed Communities for Local Democracy. Apart from Tauranga and perhaps Rotorua, I understand that all the nearby councils have joined and are opposed to the Three Waters proposal. That includes Matamata Piakau, Thames Coromandel, Kawerau, Opotiki, Whakatane and Ruapehu councils. They have all joined the opposition to the Three Waters proposal. There are now over 30 councils forming Communities for Local Democracy and challenging the government. Since the working group appointed by the minister finished its review, Phil Goff, the Mayor of Auckland City, has left the working group set up by government ostensibly to allow local councils to provide input into the final shape of the proposal. He has now spoken out strongly in opposition to the proposal. The Mayor of Hamilton and Jason Smith, the Mayor of Kaipara, have done the same. All councils from Auckland North are now opposed. So where does local government New Zealand sit in all of this? Perhaps naively, I had believed the association's role was to support local councils, its members, and this is why we fund it, in our council's case, to the tune of over 50,000 every year. However, the association is prepared to go into an agreement to promote the government's Three Waters proposal without any consultation with their member councils, and this is utterly deplorable. The president of the association, Stuart Crosby, has come out saying that stormwater need not be in the Three Waters proposal, but this would do nothing to fix the fundamental problem with the government's proposal. The Auditor General has publicly stated that if the Three Waters proposal goes ahead, quote, it could have adverse effect on public accountability, transparency, and organizational performance, end of quote. The legal research being undertaken by Stephen Franks from Frank Ogilvie, a leading public law firm in Wellington, suggests that ministers may even have broken the law in their statements on the Water Services Entities Bill, the bill now before Parliament designed to give effect to the government's Three Waters proposal. Under the proposed legislation, it is claimed that councils will co-own the 4 water services entities with shares to be allocated to them. But the legal opinion, these claims are described as false, misleading, and deceptive, as Jenny Hobbs has already said. The advice clearly states that councils will in no way have anything remotely akin to ownership, having been denied the rights of possession, control, and anything resembling ownership. If this is the position after the legislation becomes law, the same issues will remain. Gary Judd, QC, has reviewed the Frank Ogilvie opinion and endorses the reasoning and conclusions. Worse still, he concludes, quote, when all the lying statements are put together as the legal opinion does, the government's effrontery is breathtaking, end of quote. We at Western Bay of Plenty, like fellow councillors up and down the country, have been reliant on the local government association to do its homework, but it has totally failed to do so. Instead, it has sold out for a paltry $2 million, with the Department of Internal Affairs on behalf of the government assessing its every move in order to ensure that they support the government's position. For 30 pieces of silver, they have betrayed us all. We should have nothing further to do with them. I move my motion.
Before I put the motion, are there any speakers for and against? And Councillor Marsh, I see you have your hand up. It can do if that's what he wishes. Do you want to speak now?
Yes, well,
No. We bow to the.
thank you, Your Worship. Yes, this actually has been a really sort of struggled in many ways, because I find that LGNZ has been very important to our country and to our councils, and in my past, I guess I've made a few friends and friendships and have enjoyed what they have done for us down there in Wellington, and from the subscribing councils and mayors that have been there. It is our national body as it is at present. It offers many services, and that really has been a big thing that it does offer to us. It does give support, it does do research, it does do training, etc., and guidance and advice. It would be a big loss not to have them. And at present, although I second this motion totally, what replaces it or how we work with that is another issue, but we could. We as councillors no longer attend Zone 2 meetings, another area that we could be working with our local councillors or regional councillors, zone councillors and other things. We do get reports, but we do not actually attend those meetings. And that's an area where we learn and develop relationships and progress, I think, lots of ideas. LGNZ agreed not to oppose Three Waters, but to work with government and DIA to come to some form of development of it. But there was only one real option there. And that option was a dog. And I still say all that has happened with all that has gone through so far is that we've got a dog with fleas and the fleas are just being moved around the dog. That's just what I see. It's a dog with a bundle of fleas and nothing done to fix them. It's an issue where I have no problem with. We've got to raise our standards with all our waters. Anybody that objects to that is probably dreaming. It is an absolute must. To me, it is a simple issue of, well, in a simple form, shall I say, it is an issue of how largely we go about funding it and implementing it and enforcing it. That is really what the issue is about to me with Three Waters. And I believe there are other ways that we potentially could fund it. There's certainly no need for the convoluted governance and management and structure that we have. Just none. It's the most incredible structure I've ever seen. You're running from one side to the other side, to up to down. Totally loses me. And in there is another issue as well, which a lot of people don't like, and that's co-governance.
Yeah, Alan, the agenda item is to withdraw from LGNZ.
Yes, and okay, sir, I will. So to me, sir, LGNZ has to be or have a shot across its bow. And one of the other reasons is because it supported the removal of our right to actually have a referendum on Maori wards. That seemed to be driven quite strongly as well. No matter what, or so on with the government and laws, sir, I will skip down to the situation. I don't believe that LGNZ continues or represents our concerns and our local constituents. I don't really see how we can continue to support things with national policy statements and law changes. It's just something that still doesn't stand up. We should be opposing those things. LGNZ has not done that for us. To me, it is time that councils and councillors and ratepayers and residents have their say and not be basically pushed around, sir, by I guess our government and relatively cooperated with by LGNZ. It is time to tell LGNZ and other councils we can't continue to be complicit with their actions and remove ourselves from the organisation and truly represent our people, even if it is on our own. To me, sir, in my country, New Zealand is my country. Jack, and we'll say Jill, are equal to their master, no matter the colour, skin, ethnicity, or any of us. I do urge my fellow councillors to seriously consider and vote for removal from, or our removal from LGNZ. Thank you.
Councillor Marsh, and I remind councillors when you're speaking for or against, we do want to get home today, please. Councillor Marsh.
Mine will be shorter than that. I'm absolutely behind Margaret Murray-Bench and her petition to get out of this LTNZ. I think that we need to listen to, as councillors, and I think all the time that I've been in council, this has been one of the biggest issues that has come up. We need to listen to what our ratepayers are saying, because we've got 320 million invested in our wastewater system. As ratepayers, we've paid for that ourselves. And I think that probably 90% of our ratepayers would be wishing us to get out of this organisation, because they are backing the government 100%. And probably over half or 90% of the people in New Zealand would be against what the government are doing. So I would be 100% behind with Murray-Bench, and that is where I stand. I'm absolutely opposed to this. And why do we not listen to our ratepayers? And I would hope our present councillors will listen to what the ratepayers are telling them, because that is what they want. Thank you.
Thank you. Good now. Anne Henry, and then Don Thwaites, Murray Granger.
I'm speaking to support this motion today, but I do believe the damage is done. And I really don't know whether this ends, what it will do is show that we are clearly against the decision that the government have decided to take and mandated, that the community voice is not being heard, and that LGNZ could have actually been a lot more supportive and stronger in supporting what actually was the community view. I think right from the beginning, the rhetoric has been deceitful in what the government has done, extremely. Shareholdership is not ownership. But from what I've come into council as a principle of, the community speak, when there's a significant issue, you take it to the community. This was not done. The decision to mandate this decision was done way before we even went to that first meeting. So central government are clearly not following their own rules of engagement on matters that are of high significance, yet they expect local government to follow those principles that they set upon us. So it's do as I say, not as I do. And I am not quite sure exactly the ins and outs of what local government have done, but if they've been complicit in allowing the government to carry on with this process and mandate without speaking out about it, then that is another reason why I feel I should be supporting this bill today. This motion today.
We have Don Thwaites, Murray.
Thank you, Gary. I agree 100% with what Margaret Murray-Bean just said this morning regarding the Three Waters and what other people in the room have said regarding the Three Waters debate. However, and here it comes now, this is not about Three Waters today.
No.
This is about our membership of Local Government New Zealand. That is the motion. If Margaret had put forward the motion that we join Communities for Local Democracy, I would have voted 100% before her. However, like I said, this is about our membership of Local Government New Zealand. So I, as one of the prospective mayoral candidates in this district, could not possibly go out to the community meetings going forward saying that we don't agree with them, so we're leaving. If I'm talking about engaging with everyone, hearing all the views on the room, we must stay within the tent of Local Government New Zealand to drive change. You've heard about Three Waters today. The future of local government is up for debate, and we must stay within that tent and debate that. I come from the perspective of sticking to core business and sticking to course. I've heard enough. We've had webinars right throughout the country with members involved who want to morph into all sorts of, I shouldn't call them whiffy-waffy things, but that's what they come across as. So that debate is further down the chain. So leadership of an organisation is one thing, and maybe the leadership of Local Government New Zealand might be addressed after local government elections, just like a number of mayors and councillors will change. I've heard from prospective councillor Coxhead over there in public forum saying that she supports leaving. However, I couldn't, as a new mayor, support my new councillors not having the opportunity to have all that training that is provided through Local Government New Zealand. And like I said, you want to hear the full diverse ideas of regions. So I'm I'm separating my thoughts on Three Waters, which I totally oppose. And like Margaret said, has been supported by the Auditor General, have been supported by legal opinions. In my opinion, the whole thing's going to fall to bits. It just won't stand up to scrutiny. And I think that local government election is going to be the first avenue to drive that change. However, I won't be supporting this because I believe we must stay within the tent and we must drive change from within the tent. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. We've got Murray Granger now, followed by Mark Dean.
Thank you.
And
I'm sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. I have 3 points. Local government New Zealand in the Three Waters issues has perpetrated falsehoods on their website, and I quote, it says, and every year 35,000 New Zealanders get sick from water that doesn't meet international standards for clean drinking water. That is a fact. 35,000 get sick. That's what they say. There's a link on that page and it goes to a Stuff article of all places, which if you read the Stuff article says the government estimates around 34,000 people become sick from their drinking water. So it's not 35, it's 34, and it's an estimate. It's a guess. Nobody knows, nobody's measured, but LGNZ told us factually 35,000 do get sick every year. Further down that article, it says around 30 supplies together providing water to around 35,000 people. So now we've got back to 35,000, were deemed to be failing to take appropriate action to protect the public health after an issue was discovered. It doesn't say that 35,000 people got sick. They were just, so they've perpetrated falsehoods on their website. Secondly, they've been duplicitous. And I quote from their website again. In terms of LGNZ's position, we passed a motion at our July AGM that did not support the reforms being made mandatory and acknowledged that individual councils remain able to express their own views on the reforms and make their own decisions. They go on to say, our position on mandating reform. It was clear the government was determined to enact Three Waters reform. That is why we pushed so hard to optimise the package for the sector before any decision was made. But we've never supported the reform becoming mandatory. This was a painful outcome for the sector and we pushed back at every possible step. That's what they say on their website. While at the same time, signing a heads of agreement with the IA, which says 2.7, we acknowledge the Crown and LGNZ will each further acknowledge that the Three Waters Reform Programme is tested and robust package of reforms that will, point B, require all-in participation of authorities to do so. They're speaking out of both sides of their mouth. Thirdly, they supported a clear conflict of interest. The LGNZ Te Maratua Committee, which advises the New Zealand Government on local government policies and legislation, has Tipa Mahuta, the Minister's sister, on it. A clear conflict of interest allowed to go unchecked by both the government and LGNZ. LGNZ has not served us or other councils well, and they need a strong message telling them of our dissatisfaction with their performance to date, and we want to see some real leadership when it comes to the reform of local government. That said, sir, I do not believe it is the right thing for the last meeting of an outgoing council to bind the future councils on whether or not we are members of LGNZ. I think that's an issue that the new council should take up, and it's up to them to decide whether we should remain. But they do need an extremely strongly worded response from us about their performance to date and how dissatisfied we are with what they have done for us and our country. Thank you.
We have now Mark Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I oppose this motion on the grounds that I believe it is far better to be within an organisation and to facilitate any change than to be outside of it and criticise it from the outside. Being within an organisation gives you access to information that others don't get. And there's a lot of examples of that. Thirdly, I agree with Murray. At this stage, we don't, in the electoral cycle, really have a right to vote on something that's going to put a covenant on the future council coming in. This motion is not actually about membership of LTNZ. It is about three waters, and I think that is wrong. I'm really concerned at the email campaign that we have had that has accompanied this motion. As a councillor, I was elected to represent the district, to make decisions for the district. To have a barrage of advice is frankly insulting to my intelligence and ability to make these decisions. The volume of this advice, if I say it, call it advice, should not be taken as what the general public actually believe. It also appears that all these emails originate from one particular organisation or ginger group. They are not representative of our whole district, and they appear to be just the views of that ginger group that has put together a method of getting a whole lot of its members to send emails to councillors. In my view, it is not, it is a matter for councillors to decide. It is not a matter that should be canvassed public support about, unless, of course, it's part of a bigger political picture. And I think that that's what it's all about.
So could you please, we gave everybody respect. So, Mark, thank you. Respect for everyone is helpful.
I'll carry on. It's an underhanded way to influence council's decision and position on three waters. Outsiders do not have all the information that councillors have. For example, how many of the public actually got to read the document that was circulated by Local Government New Zealand on the audit of the Tasmanian water done in 2013, which showed that which is exactly what is trying to be done here, was really successful. This type of email campaign, in my opinion, is a threat to our democracy. If we ever let it become the norm, then we have problems because certain groups will have more influence than others. I urge councillors not to vote for this motion. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers for or against the motion? Monique?
Does anyone think it's an election? I'd just like to have my word, obviously, and I won't be voting for the motion. I trust that the working groups have done what is best for us in terms of three waters, but this motion isn't about three waters. It is about whether LGNZ represents us and speaks for our well-beings. And from my time sitting here, I can say that they have done their part, and I've been able to have one-on-one conversations with some of the members of the table. So I won't be voting in support of this, and we'll leave it up to the up-and-coming council when elected.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Not before I give Margaret Murray Beans her right to reply. I also will be speaking against this. I just take the opportunity to correct an error, a significant error. Every councillor is more than welcome to attend Zone 2. They have been advertised right throughout this triennium, and councillors have chosen not to attend. That's the councillor's choice.
Point of order, sir, you never invited us, and when I did ask for transport, you did.
Sorry, it is always in the elected members' calendar to attend if you wish. That has always been in the elected members' calendar and to attend if you wish. I also make the point, Local Government New Zealand has significantly opposed government, but it's government reform following on, as I mentioned earlier on, from the 2016 National Policy Statement on Freshwater Management. That's the law that was put in place prior to this new government becoming in play. So I believe withdrawing from LGNZ is not only the wrong thing to do, it is not the right time to do it. because we've only got less than 2 months of this triennium to go. And the new council will decide whether it wants to be a member or not. So to me, this late in the day to do this, I won't say it borders on political grandstanding, but it's just, in my opinion, not the right thing to do. So I cannot support this. But Margaret Murray-Beans, your right to reply.
Thank you, sir. I have known the Local Government Association for many years, and I was actually a member of it a long time ago. I have never, in all my years and experience in local government, have had to endure such a weak response from a council that won't make a decision. When I tried at the beginning of this to withdraw from, argue against the Three Waters, I did not have the support. On the divided thing, joining the democracy, the action group, on a casting vote, we lost that one as well. Our community, and I totally disagree with Councillor Deans, that our community is only just orchestrated by a couple of groups. That isn't so. They've gone out of their way to make sure they've got informed. And I get sick and tired of this argument that if we sit inside the tent, we'll do better. Well, I have to tell you, mates, we haven't done better. We have been neglected. And if you don't stand up now and tell the Local Government Association that they have failed us, that is a message for the new council. The new council and the new mayor can decide whether they want to join again, but you should have the courage to tell them at this point that their performance has not been satisfactory. They have failed us, and Stuart Crosby in his leadership role has been appalling. And I know the fellow and just say to you, his performance has just been a joke, really, in this last while. So I hold firmly to the view that if you really represent the people of the Western Bay of Plenty, you will for the first time actually stand up for them and vote to tell the Local Government Association, we've had enough of them and their poor performance. If we withdraw now, we don't lose anything because the new mayor can, if they wish, join again and have good reason to do so, but we need to actually have a better performance from the LGA. So I urge you to vote for the motion. It isn't to do about Three Waters. It isn't to do about anything else. It's to do about their poor performance and how they have not done the research that you would have expected them to. They have not challenged the government when it came out and said, all this was to do with Havelock North. They didn't then tell you that Havelock North had spent $80 million improving their water supply. Local government is about representing people. And for once in our time, could we please stand up and actually represent them and tell the Local Government Association we are not satisfied with their performance. The new council, as I've said again and again, can change its mind if it wants to, but we should be telling them why we should not belong. So I stand by the statements I have made, and I thank the people who've come in to support us, who do reflect the community and have stood up and said what they have done. But it's over to you. You can duck back and not do anything, which you're good at, or else you can stand up and tell them that they have got to, for once, know that there is a local authority that is not satisfied with their performance. I rest my case.
Councillors, I take you to page 156 of the agenda. There's 2 recommendations there. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? No.
Division.
Called for a division. Those voting for, Councillor Marsh, can you let me know first? Are you voting for with your hand up?
Yep.
Thank you.
It's up.
So those that are voting for it, put their hand up, please. Councillor Henry, Murray-Beans and Sol.
Yes, got them.
Those against? Granger, Denya, Dean, Daly, Weber, Thwaites, Scrimger, and I declare it lost. Thank you. I thank you for your confidence in your council. And I think it's appropriate now that we break for morning tea and come back at 11:15 for the real agenda. Thanks. straight to the main agenda, pages 8 to 47, which is receipt of the community board minutes. Can I have a move and a second of that, please? Councillor Denia, Councillor Granger. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. I declare that carried. We now move to page 48, which is the District Licensing Committee minutes for receipt. Move and a seconder. Councillor Thwaites, Councillor Sol. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. Carried. We now move to page 83, which is the Katakana Waihi Beach Ward Forum minutes for receipt. I'll move in a second. Councillor Denia, Councillor Henry. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. I declare that carried. We now move to the minutes of the council meeting 29th of June on page 94. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scrimgeour. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. I declare that carried. We now move to the minutes of the District Plan Committee on page 114. Councillor Scrimgeour, Councillor Murray Benge. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. Carried. Take a bit of a breath. Then move to the Kaimai Ward Forum, where I understand there's an amendment coming from Councillor Granger, and who's going to second it? Councillor Dean. I understand you've all accepted the new wording, but does anybody want to read that out to make sure everybody, the rest of
read it out for
thank you.
Thank you. Number one, that council supports the extension of rural broadband, in particular Whakamarama. Number two, that council makes submissions to Crown infrastructure partners and broadband providers for the extension of broadband within the district. Number three, that staff report back to council on outcomes at a future date.
Thank you. I'll move the amendment. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. That becomes a substantive motion. I'll now put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. Thank you. We now move to page 132, which is the Makatu Te Puke Ward Forum for receipt. Councillor Gray, Councillor Daly. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. I declare that carried. We now move to page 144, which is the performance and monitoring meeting. Councillor Thwaites, Councillor Granger. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. I declare that carried. We now move to page 155, which is the Mayor's report. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder?
Oh, sorry, it's policy. Yes, we have the policy meeting. Minutes of the policy meeting.
Sorry, I'll skip past one.
Policy committee meeting on 26th July.
That one, what's the page on that?
Page 151.
Sorry, page 151, which is the receipt of the policy committee meeting. I'll move that. A second, please. Councillor Granger. Councillor Granger. I'll put that. All those in favour. We now have the Mayor's report to council. The update on smart growth is really to advise everybody, which I'm sure they're aware. Peter Winder, who was the independent chair appointed recently, has been seconded to the Polytech review, and as a result of that hasn't got time. So given it's so late in the triennium, I will step in as the deputy chair to get us through the end of the triennium, which is the meeting next week. And then the new council laws, once they decide who the representatives are for this council, for the regional council and the Mana Whenua representatives, will reconvene after the elections and work out where to from here with a replacement for Peter Winder going forward. So that's it. No, I have to leave it there. The other bits in confidential, sorry. The report back on the local government conference. I think the critical thing to come out of that is that in July, 15th of July, and going back over the last, I would hope 6 years, but in reality 3 years, there has been considerable discussion at rural and provincial meetings and at the metro meetings that the current structure of LGNZ and the way it operates is got incredibly clumsy. And over time, we have gone to achieving the lowest common denominator going forward. So LGNZ has agreed and resolved, and the full conference agreed that there will be a thorough review in the new triennium of the rules, and the structure of LGNZ. The problem with LGNZ, and I must admit, I'm one of the being a mayor, and for those that are standing for the mayoralty, I make it very clear, it is a full-time job. 10-hour days are quite common, and 7 days a week is not uncommon. And so if you're doing, I believe, and several others of us are in the same boat, if you're doing the job properly as a mayor, you haven't got time to spend hours and days in Wellington. And with all due respect to the mayors around that table, they have not got the technical expertise to line up in a debate with ministers and all of their supporting bureaucrats. And so one of the suggestions, and I hope whoever picks up the mayoralty going forward is of this view. Governance and technical expertise need to be separated. We need less on governance and more technical experts, and LGNZ's got some incredibly good technical experts, but it needs a hell of a lot more. And we noticed that through the Three Waters. The people who were debating with DIA should have been an expert in stormwater, international expert in stormwater, an international expert in wastewater, an international expert, but they weren't. There were mayors, and it was only in that last group that I came in on, and another couple where they brought some technical expertise in. But it's not so. Just to sum it up, LGNZ has recognised that they have to go through a thorough review, and that will start once the new LGNZ board is put in place after the next elections. I don't know if there's any questions on that. Councillor Murray-Bench.
I've got 3 questions, sir. The first one is about smart growth. You've been on for some time, and originally you said it was just a talk fest, and one can't help believe that it's still just a talk fest. Are we really going to make progress as a region, sub-region, with smart growth at the head? Or is it time for us to walk away and do it on our own? With your experience on it, what's your view?
Well, in the public arena, and when we go into confidential, I'll expand on it. I believe smart growth is the only way to do a sub-regional planning exercise. Yes, it has not made a lot of progress in 12 years, but hopefully in the confidential session you'll learn a bit more. And I think, seeing the press is here, the next smart growth meeting on next week will be quite interesting. I think you'll find.
Could I also ask you, we are part of the provinces, and as far as central government's concerned, it really doesn't seem to be interested in the provinces. So on State Highway 2, that Takuna to Mokoroa, to take it off the 10-year plan wasn't just unreasonable, it was downright disgraceful. And how do we, as the provinces, actually have more influence in Wellington than what we're doing at the moment?
Well, with all due respect, the Mokoroa State Highway 2 interchange was taken off at the Regional Land Transport Committee level. And if you read the minutes of the Regional Land Transport Committee, you'll see that a particular mayor was angry in August that the executives changed the weighting against the resolution from the mayors, which changed the order of priority. And a resolution was put forward that we would apply for a variation. And if you look at the 4 biggest projects, which is the Tauranga Northern Link or Takatima Northern Link, the Mokoroa interchange, the enabling works at Tauriko, and some of the works around Hull Road, Hewlett's Road. None of them made the priority list from the Regional Land Transport Committee. The Regional Land Transport Committee is broken.
I ask who serves on that?
I did for our council and all the mayors. But 2 members from the regional council who have no roads. Don't get me started on that. I'll leave it there.
Excuse me, sir, are you saying that the regional council is on the Regional Land Transport Committee, and which we have roading needs, don't support us in that meeting?
It's in the naming of the committee. It is the Regional Land Transport Planning Committee. In my view, it's more the Emissions Trading Commission Committee. Some people are more interested in keeping the air clean, and I accept that. But it is not the role of a road planning committee to get involved, I think, in emissions trading and all that sort of stuff. But that's unfortunately the legislation. The legislation appoints 2 from the regional council on every area unless it's a unitary authority.
Let's clarify your comment about I'm not right. Intersection grade. When I was the member on it, 2018, the intersection was a separate project. Ranked
Microphone,
was
sorry.
ranked number 2. So if it was taken off, post, not 2018, because here it is here. Te Puna to Omokara is 1, Omokara intersection is 2, Waihi to Omokara is 3, Tauriko 4, Eastern Corridor projects 5. So
you're absolutely correct. And the point I just made is that at the last time, or this round,
right,
some of the staff at the regional council felt because central government had said it was going to be funded from the NZ Up program, it did not need to be included in the regional land transport plan. When the regional land transport plan got to Wellington, the minister said it's not in your regional land transport plan. We cannot include it in the national land transport plan. So I accept I lost, and on your behalf, I failed.
No, it's just not the funding available for the project.
That was the cold hard light today. So that's where we've got to on the local government. Did you have another question? Sorry.
Yes, sir. I go back to that one. With your experience, and it's considerable, what advice would you give to an incoming council how to negotiate with central government? Because to have your regional land transport committees and all these others, we just get bogged down in bureaucracy, and we don't have that direct contact with Wellington.
For a fee, I'm more than happy to train the next mayor coming in. The only thing I'd say is the mayor has to be politically agnostic. That's the first thing. Whoever is in power is my friend, because they have the purse strings. And just so you're aware, we run 2 calendars here. There's a mayor's calendar and there's an elected member's calendar. You do not see the meetings I have with ministers and what I do. You just have to continually keep in their ears. The other thing I think you need to look outside and look at some of the people that are behind us here. Our staff have got some really good contacts in Wellington. And if you look at what we have got through the CIP, we've got close to $1 billion by sticking to an evidence-based, taking it to them. If we can't get it through the Regional Land Transport Committee, and that's a place, we went straight to the minister. We got Jan Taniti and Ange Warren Clark in here within about 4 weeks of finding out what the route and saying, this is rubbish. This is the reality. And we have continued to work really hard. That's myself and senior executives, whether it's, and Gary, I don't know, you're going on holiday, but it would take a long time, or it's a long list of the government funding that we've got. The tourist funding that just came through, council laws knew nothing about those 3 projects that Gary put applications in for and are funded by central government. It's that relation at the bureaucrat level, because they're the people that are consistent. The ministers come and go. They are 3 years is a good term for a minister. And so you've got to make sure they're advised, but you've got to work very closely with the bureaucrats. And I think this council, in my experience, has been really well served by our executive team and that relationship level. And that's why some of the stuff, and we'll talk about it when we go into confidential about something that's happening next Thursday.
Also say we had Kieran McNulty came to see us and you were sick at the time and it was really first class. He's Associate Minister of Transport and Local Government and I think Emergency Services, and there were about 8 of us round the table. He had internal affairs with him. He had his private secretary taking notes, and Elizabeth, I don't know what she was doing, but I think she was doing their timetables. But he listened and he heard us, and I thought we should be doing a lot more of that. It was direct contact, and it was you were in control, John, and I'm sure you would agree. It was worthwhile.
Totally, and I had opportunity to
And we don't normally see them.
to talk with him later that same evening, and I thought it was really valuable just to remind him of the things we talked about and so forth.
And I, you know, within days of that meeting, I'd had an email from his secretary saying this is the minutes of the notes of the meeting. Have I got it right? And from my understanding, because John briefed me, yes, they got it right. But I think towns like Mokoroa, Katakana and Te Puke are far better known at the cabinet table now. You also have to take some opportunities, which, you know, you have to swallow the hard bits now and again. But I personally took a table at a Labour Party fundraising, which meant I had dinner with Grant Robertson. So you had his ear for about 4 hours. And tried to get through, and I think between Bill Wasley from Smart Growth and myself, we got and he arranged for some ministers so that shortly after that Twyford came up. So you've just got to work behind the scenes, whoever the new mayor is, because that's the way it works.
Could we have a copy of those notes that Kieran McNulty took? They've come to you, they've come to John.
I can circulate those, yeah.
We should see those.
The other point I've got to make there was we had a visit by the Irish ambassador. Since this was written, we've had a second visit by the Irish ambassador and the president of the Irish Professional Rugby Players Association. They were here, but they wanted to go to the Western Bay Museum, which they did do. They went visited twice. That we're building some relationships to try and get some funding for the museum through the Irish people, because they're trying to tell a worldwide story. And I think it's those sorts of things where they take time. I accept they take time, but they do bring funding in for different things through to our district, and we just got to work harder on that. So that's just my report. Are there any other questions on that?
I also say, sir, I went to a light lunch, and I think Priority One put it on for the Israeli ambassador, and he had a list of the things that Israel was doing, and on the technical side, they are so advanced. And it was really quite exciting to hear from him. And it's a great shame that we don't have the likes of them coming to us. And rather than just going to Priority One, where there weren't enough people around that table that day. And so I would like to think that we up our performance and do the inviting here again.
Rest assured the invites go out, but these people have got a lot of other stuff on, and we are... we've just got to work our way through the stuff that's coming through. Yeah. Sorry, Grant, do you have a question?
Gary, could I just ask, apart from Three Waters, what were the other areas of technical expertise that local government feels they have to beef up?
Well, reform of local government, But if that is not, if you read the stuff technically, it is the review of local government. It's not a reform. And that's been postponed. The other is the RMA reform that's coming through. These are really complex issues. And for somebody to look at rewriting the RMA, some of the mayors that are around that table, and will tell you, they are really struggling. When you've got these big things in front of you, you really need professional technical expertise across the table from the government bureaucrats.
Do you think the sort of almost adversarial meetings are the right approach for these approaches to central government?
If anybody thinks you're having an adversarial approach to dealing with local government, forget it. You've lost on day one. You have to respect local government, and what we've tried to do, and I learned this. You've just got to stick to the evidence, and don't try and get into the emotion or anything like that. You've got to stick. This is what it means, and I suppose because I'm shorter than most, taking an adversarial approach doesn't suit my lifestyle. So, Anne, you had a question.
Just back to the Irish minister and.
No, the ambassador.
Microphone. Just leading into that, because that for Katakana could have, there's huge potential with that, being probably one of the only completely Irish settled in the world, I suppose. I don't know, apart from Ireland. With the lead in for these sorts of things that you get for those people coming, how long do you have? What sort of notice do you get?
That one was about 3 days.
I know,
And
so much better could be done if we had more notice.
Well, with all due respect, there was an Irish rugby tour coming through here. And because of the Dave Gallagher, he felt he should have some understanding of Dave Gallagher before he went to meet the Irish rugby team. So it was there, and he made it very clear he wanted to go to the primary school.
Yeah.
And that was it. So we actually stretched it a little bit further.
Well, as you know, because you've been there, there's a very good beginning story of Dave there at that primary school, starting his early days in Katakana, and when the statue goes, we want it in Katakana.
Right. So I'll move my report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scrimger. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. I declare that carried. We now move to page 158, which is the delegations to the Chief Executive to get us through the interregnum period. This is statutory. We just have to do that. Councillor Granger, you're moving, and Councillor Denyer. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. I declare that carried. We now move to page 162, which is the Community Matching Fund result. This is, I presume, been advised to everybody, so that's really to bring councillors aware of what happened there. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Denyer, Councillor Scrimger. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. Carried. We now move to page 165, which is facilities in the community outcome as well. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Dean, Councillor Gray. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. We now move to the late item in open, and who's speaking to that? Gary, please.
Mr. Mayor, yes, the late item is just the referral from the Performance Monitoring Committee to the council for confirmation of the decisions or the recommendation from the Performance Monitoring Committee regarding the new Waihi Beach Library Service Centre.
So it's just to formally approve the decision that was made at Performance and Monitoring. So Councillor Henry, you're moving, and Councillor Den, you're seconding. Is there any discussion on that? I don't think so. Councillor Murray-Bend.
I think so. There was so much support for it from the beginning. I don't know why we took so long with a consultation to actually come to the same decision that everybody knew would be the place in the first place.
I agree with you. I've followed that for my whole 12 years in local government, and that's one of the faster ones we've done. Yeah, so I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. I declare that carried. If somebody can move to take us into confidential, please. Councillor Granger, Councillor Daly, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, no. I declare that